So from the Torah, we find that there are 8 mitzvot. 3 of them are positive and 5 are negative. What does it mean, a positive mitzvah? In Hebrew, we call it mitzvat aseh. What does it mean, mitzvat aseh? Something to do. Give me an example of mitzvat aseh. Making kiddush, lighting the candles, it's to do something. Mitzvat lo ta'aseh, a negative mitzvah, is to abstain from doing something. So what are the 3 mitzvot aseh, positive commands? One is achilat matzah. We have a mitzvah to eat matzah. Now, when is eating matzah mandatory? When is that a mitzvah? Only on the Seder. So if somebody is on a diet and doesn't want to eat carbs, and really matzah is not so good for their digestion, whatever, you could abstain from eating matzah during Pesach, but the 2 Sedarim. In Israel, 1 Seder, here is 2 Sedarim. Eating matzah on the first night of Pesach. In the diaspora, it's 2. For the rest of Pesach, it is forbidden to eat Hametz, but there is no formal obligation to eat matzah. The second mitzvah, I'm going to say it fast, but Bezrat Hashem, we will devote more time to it, even today, either today or next class. Vehigadata lebincha. That's a central mitzvah of Pesach. What does it mean, vehigadata lebincha? Lehagid is to tell somebody, but to tell it in a way of a storyteller. To tell lebincha, to tell your son, tell our children during the first night of Pesach, again, which is the 2 nights in the diaspora, the story of our slavery in Egypt and our miraculous redemption. This story is narrated in the Hagadah. And the mitzvah of telling the story of Pesach includes all what we do in the Seder. For example, we drink 4 cups of wine, we eat the maror, we lean on the side. All of these are symbolisms that we use in order to make our story more relatable, more I would say interesting for the audience to pay attention and to get the message. Bezrat Hashem, next time we will see inside the Torah that whenever the Exodus is taking place, there is almost not mention of where are we going, or there is not too much description about let's stand in this way, or let's take these weapons. But there are 3 times the mention, you shall tell your children. You shall tell your children. I'm taking you out of Egypt, so you shall tell your children. We see from the beginning how strong is that goal in all the process of Yetziat Mitzrayim, of the Exodus from Egypt. How important it is that we bring this part of our history into our children's Jewish identity. It becomes who we are, who we become. There is no way for a Jew to feel that he is a Jew in the right way if he doesn't know about our history, our beginning, how Hashem took us out of Egypt. I want to hear from you. What elements in our being as Jews we absorb from this story? When I hear about Hashem took a group of slaves as Am Israel out of Egypt, and with all these miracles, crossed as the Yam Suf, gave Makot, punished the Egyptians with the Makot, etc., etc., etc. What does it do to me to know this, to incorporate this into my identity, understanding that I'm coming from that place? Okay, I get information about who is our God. How powerful is Hashem. And imagine I am in a situation of distress and I need to pray to Hashem, and I don't see that there is any possibility to get out of that difficult situation. If I really incorporate this idea of Yetziat Mitzrayim and I believe in this and I see the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it gives me hope. It gives me the understanding. Our God is so powerful. He can do that. He can heal her. He can take me out of this financial distress. He can help me, Be'ezrat Hashem, have children. He will find that personal shidduch. Like everything that is so difficult for us to achieve, thinking about Yetziat Mitzrayim help us understand that we should pray to HaKadosh Baruch Hu because he is capable. So the greatest capability of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what else? Gratitude, it brings us to gratitude. And that's a very important point that we will see later when we see about the Hagadah. Strengthen our emunah in our connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What else? So Hashem chose us. It makes me understand that there is a very important connection between Hashem and Am Israel. And that brings us later to Kabbalat HaTorah Behar Sinai and this special pact that we have, that Hashem told us, if you take my commandments, my Torah, I'm going to protect you forever. So again, understanding how Hashem is with us. So we can go on and on the whole class speaking about, but this is a small example of how in the night of the Seder, you can go into deep ideas through the Hagadah, or through telling the story of what we're doing. Okay, let's continue. So Veigarte Lebincha, we said, is telling the story. Also, who are we telling the story? But originally first, to our children. Oh, good for Moshe. She's not here, but she's taking care of us. Thank you, Moshe. She's not here. They called her thinking that she's in the class. Okay. Who are we telling the story? Who are we telling the Hagadah Shel Pesach, the story? The Torah says, you shall tell your children. So we are speaking about an educational process. But the Chachamim tell us, if you don't have children, either you don't have children, or your children are not around you, or you are by yourself, you are not with people, you still need to tell the story to yourself. And in the way that the Hagadah happens, through the asking questions and getting the answers. Okay, we'll go more into the Hagadah later. Third mitzvah is Hashbatat Hametz. What is Hashbatat Hametz? Renouncing to the possession or ownership of our Hametz on the eve of Passover, that is the 14th of Nisan before noon. Here I need to explain something. Did you understand what does it mean? It's a little bit tricky, right? What does it mean, Hashbatat? We're speaking about mitzvot from the Torah, biblical commandments that are relevant in Pesach. What does it mean? That I renounce to the possession or ownership of my Hametz on the eve of Pesach. That's a mitzvah from the Torah. That's what we do? Yeah. Okay, we do more than that. Let me explain. Wait. Deoraita, the biblical commandment, is demanding from me before Pesach begins to renounce, to say, I don't want any of my Hametz. I renounce to it. That's it. It's not mine. According to the Torah, that would be enough. I don't want to, I have nothing to do with my Hametz. From tonight, I'm going to eat matzah, and I don't want any connection with my Hametz during Pesach. Now, our rabbis were afraid that would not be enough. They had two problems with this. Not problem, but they were afraid because of two reasons that this commandment will be very difficult to fulfill. One is, what if I own a very expensive amount of Hametz? Let's say I have a lot of whiskey, or I have a supermarket. I own a supermarket, or I own a bakery. will I really renounce to my ownership with my heart or only with my words? So they were afraid of that. Second, they were afraid, even if I'm able to renounce to my Hametz, but I have Hametz in my pantry and Hametz in the refrigerator, they were afraid that what? That they will forget, that they will not realize. And during Pesach, hey, take the sandwich. You don't realize in your routine, thing that you are used to do every day, you might fail. That's why our Chachamim added to that. That's biblical, that we need to clean the house. That's what we do during all these days before Pesach. And before Pesach, what else do? We say, Kal Hamida de Ikar, we say what the Torah is asking us to say, and we also burn the Hametz. We dispose of our Hametz. We really don't have it at all. So that's how the mitzvah to disown Hametz became more than what is written here. And now we have 5 other prohibitions that are lo ta'aseh, do not do this. So one is Isur achilat Hametz, the prohibition of eating Hametz during Pesach, which includes also seor, that is yeast. We're going to speak later about what is Hametz. Isur achilat ta'arovet Hametz, not only prohibition to eat Hametz, but also a mixture. Anything that has a little bit of Hametz will also be forbidden in Pesach. Now we have 2 prohibitions. That is the only time in the Torah that we find 2 mitzvot with different formulas but refer to the same thing. And whoever knows Ivrit can make a mistake. One is Bal Yira'eh. What does it mean, Bal Yira'eh? Bal is not, Yira'eh is that you shall not see, and the other one is Bal Imatzeh, that you shall not find. What does it mean? Okay, so actually that's not the meaning of this mitzvot. The literal meaning of the words here do not exactly tell us what does it mean. Bal Yira'eh means prohibition of owning Hametz during Pesach, regardless of where the Hametz is found, which means if I have a house in Rome and I have an office in Zurich, wherever, and I have Hametz there, even that I'm not there, even that I don't see it, and I don't touch it, and I don't eat it, I am owning it. And that's a prohibition. So we need to take care of that. We are going to see how we do that. But you cannot, if you, sometimes, common questions that people ask, what if my cleaning lady came to my house and she had a sandwich and she was eating it in my house on Pesach? Okay, it's her. We still don't allow that. Like, we are so careful with our homes, we're not going to allow them to eat bread inside our home. But I'm not transgressing these commandments. The commandment is that I cannot own the Hametz. It's not that I cannot have it next to me or that I have to cover. And if I don't see it, then that's not a problem because it says Bal Yira'eh. No, the problem is not to see it. The problem is to own it. So Bal Yira'eh is one. The other one is Bal Imatzeh, is the same thing. These 2 mitzvot, 6 and 7, are identical. There is no difference between the 2, and they apply exactly in the same way. This is an exceptional case in the Torah. The 8th mitzvah is Isur Achilat Hametz Erev Pesach Achar Chatzot Hayom, which means the Torah was telling me to keep Pesach from the 1st to the 8th day. These are the times that I cannot eat Hametz, that I cannot own Hametz. But then there is an extra obligation from Chatzot, from noon of the previous day, by the Torah, we cannot eat Hametz. Our Chachamim added. Who remembers that you don't eat Hametz from 12 p.m.? Usually from what time we don't eat Hametz? 10. So our rabbis added. They add 2 hours. It's very interesting to see how our rabbis sometimes took upon themselves to protect us from, God forbid, transgressing a commandment from the Torah, especially this one that we see that there are, how many commandments around the Hametz? We saw 7. You followed me. From the 8 mitzvot of Pesach, 7 of them were referring to Hametz. Not to eat it, not to own it, from this time, to get rid of it. So it's a very, very important mitzvah from the Torah, the prohibition of having Hametz in Pesach. And I want to add, I want to see a little more in halacha in regards to Hametz, and then we go to the Hagadah. And you know, every year we do the same. It's very, like, there is no new stuff. The Hagim are the same, the halachot are the same, but we still take upon ourselves learning and repeating the halachot, so we do things in a correct level, a correct way. What is Hametz? Okay? How would you define Hametz? I am not that email, I'm going to look for another source, but you don't need it. That's Hametz. Okay, what is Hametz? What is Hametz? Define for me Hametz. Like, we cannot, actually it says here 6 mitzvot are related to Hametz. How did I see 7? I have to check that again. Okay, what is Hametz? Wheat, barley, oat, spelt, and rye. So you brought us the 5 grains that are considered Hametz, but it's not enough. Okay, we need more elements because the matzot that we eat on Pesach, they are done with flour from wheat. So if the matzot are done from wheat, that for sure doesn't make wheat the only element to define what is Hametz. Okay, so let me read from here. Give me 1 second here. Hametz is any fermented substance, solid or liquid, which comes from one of the following 5 grains: wheat, rice, spelt, barley, and oats. These are also the 5 grains which are generally used to make bread, pastries, cakes, cookies, pizza, pasta, baked products, many candies, and other edibles. Now, liquid Hametz. Can we have also Hametz in a shape of liquid? You mentioned before. Yes. The fermentation process does not only affect products with flour that comes from these grains, it also affects liquid types of Hametz. Beer, for example, is made from, barley. Beer is made from barley grains, which are soaked in water to ferment. Beer, like whiskey and many other alcoholic beverages made out of one of these grains, is considered Hametz, although the grain was never converted into flour. Okay? Now, a fermented food which does not come from, please mute yourself. A fermented food which
got surgery, right?
Yeah.
For the left wrist. How you doing?
A fermented food which does not come from or contain any of these 5 grains does not become Hametz, even if it undergoes a fermentation process. For example, what other liquids you know that undergo fermentation and is not Hametz? Vinegar and wine. Also wine. Wine, for example, goes through a fermentation process, but it's not Hametz since it's made from grapes. The same applies to other alcoholic beverages, for example, sake from Japan, when made exclusively from rice. It's made from rice. Okay, now matzah is made from wheat, but is not fermented. Not everything that comes from these 5 grains is Hametz. In fact, matzah, which is considered bread, should only be made from one of these 5 grains. Matzah is called the bread of poverty, or lechem oni. Okay, so what is the difference between Hametz and matzah. Okay, so you say one is fermentation. What else? What is the difference between hametz and matzah? Time and rising and fermentation. What? No, but that's matzah is from the 5 grains. I'm speaking about difference between matzah and hametz. They can come both from the 5 grains. So we use 3 elements to make to check if something is hametz or matzah. We have time, we have water, and we have a seor. Seor is yeast. Who asked me about seor? You. Okay, so I'm going to read time. Bread and matzah are made with the same basic ingredients, which is flour and water. You take flour and water and you make bread. You take flour and water and you make matzah. The difference is that when preparing matzah, once the flour is mixed with water, the dough cannot be left to rest. How much time do we need? Exactly. The dough must be kneaded and baked in less than 18 minutes. If the dough is left idle for 18 minutes or more from the time that the flour comes into contact with the water, the dough ferments and becomes hametz. So now let me ask you a question. Can I take regular flour from the package of kemach and mishpacha or whatever, mix it with water, and in 16 minutes make matzot?
No.
Why not? Okay, so the flour could have been in contact with water. So even the flour that they use for the matzah has to be checked that it did not come in contact with water, because if not, it would have been passing that time after it got in contact with the water. So we have the water, we have the time, and the third element is seor. Yeast is part of the biblical prohibition of hametz. Even though yeast is not an edible food by itself, but an additive, today, we mostly use commercial yeast, which is bought in a supermarket and which many of us use mainly to bake chalot for Shabbat. Until a century ago, however, yeast was usually produced at home. I know people that do it now already, the same. How is this prepared at home? Flour and water. With flour and water together, you could get to the fermentation process. How? You keep it for a period of days and it becomes sour. This mixture becomes sourdough. It smells like alcohol and it's known as natural yeast. Sourdough is used as a catalyst for the process of fermentation in making homemade bread. In other words, when preparing bread, if we introduce this yeast into the dough, the fermentation process accelerates and the dough grows bigger and more spongy, resulting in a softer and tastier bread. So that's why we cannot use, that's a difference between hametz and matzah. Matzah doesn't have any element of fermentation. It's only flour and water with less than 18 minutes. What about other grains that are not the 5 species that we mentioned? Yes.
So I want to just clarify after these. So obviously you can't use that like homemade yeast.
Yeah.
But like let's say you buy those packaged yeast or the Costco yeast, like that you could keep in your pantry. We'll put that
No, we get rid of that.
Oh.
Yeast?
I don't know, every year a rabbi tells me different answers. I don't know.
You can keep it?
Every year that a different answer
About yeast?
Yes, yes, and it's not
During COVID, there was a shortage. We couldn't find yeast. So when I found in Costco, I make challah every week. So when I found in Costco, I bought like 4, like big ones. And then like Pesach came around and they had like 3 left. So I asked somebody, I feel bad.
Why you feel bad? It's okay, so no problem. I suppose, like many of the things that we do,
like the
is the fact that it creates is the agent that creates the fermentation and the rising of the bread. Perhaps that's the reason. I've never kept it. I just told you what I do, but it might be that it's okay. If he told you that it's okay. Like I wouldn't. No, but if it's not hametz, it's not hametz. Listen, if I imagine you have a little bit of rice that is very little, and you're not using it on Pesach because it's open, even that is not with a high value, you will not throw it because it's not Hametz. Either it is Hametz or it's not Hametz. So I suppose there is some sensitivities to the use of yeast, and that's why I don't keep it, and a lot of people don't keep it. But if the rabbi told you that it's okay, so it's okay. Yeah, interesting. Very. I'm gonna check what is the main. Okay, no problem. Yes. Boker tov. What?
What's the point to use the yeast?
No. To use no.
No, they have the yeast for pizza.
Oh, you're right. Okay, so Esther is asking a very important question. Okay, that's why it's so important what we are doing. That's why it's so important to learn what is Hametz and what is not Hametz. Because really today, you find everything like cakes, bread, lahmaniot, bagels, pizza, pasta. Like literally you don't feel that it's Pesach, especially if you go to one of these programs that the caterers really bring everything. And so exactly, once the ingredients are not Hametz and you know that everything has been kept, so you say, okay, it's Pesach. I personally, like you and like some other people, I love to feel that it's Pesach. Like, but still we make cakes, but you feel that they are Pesach. Yeah, and we.
They sell like the, it's yeast for paper. It's in a baking.
Because it's not yeast. It's not yeast. It's like baking powder or something like that. Yes. Okay. Yes. It depends what are the ingredients. So vinegar shouldn't be Hametz if it's only coming from alcohol or from wine. It depends. Don't ask me on the spot about different things. No, I would follow myself some list that they bring out there to check what is Hametz and what is not Hametz. Like we know the basics. What about rice and kitniot? We're not going to speak about that now. I said I'm going to speak a little bit about the Hagadah. So we eat rice in the community, and most Sephardim eat rice. Some communities, like the Moroccan communities, do not eat rice. I didn't eat rice during all my childhood, and many years after I got married, I refused to eat rice because if I didn't eat in my home, why should I eat now? But then slowly, you realize that it's really what I was told as a child, that why rice was forbidden is because usually the storage or the places where they storage the rice was also a place where they storage the wheat. And it's such a similar grain, so they were very much afraid that it could be mixed. And again, we are very, very strict with Pesach, with Hametz, and keeping the halacha. Okay, so we will continue Be'ezrat Hashem. If you want, next week there is no class. I'm going to be away. But the week after Be'ezrat Hashem, we will have at least one more class about Pesach. If you want, you can message me questions that you have, and I will try to bring the answers for the class in 2 weeks. Okay? Now, as I said, one of the very, very important mitzvot of the night is Vehigadah lebincha, is telling your children the story. And to tell the story, we need to know the story. And we need to learn it ourselves. And we don't only need to know the story, we need to know how to make it interesting, how to make the experience of sitting around the table something that everybody wants to be there. Now, the audience that we usually have in a Seder, in a Pesach Seder, is a difficult one. Why is a difficult audience?
All ages.
All ages. What else?
All different backgrounds.
All different backgrounds. We are tired. We are hungry. It takes long. Everybody wants to eat. What else? What did you say? It's long. What? Okay, you say you are tired because of that.
Not just tired, but like let's say you want to talk to your kid, but at the same time you want to have all the guests.
Oh, exactly. How do you do to take care of the Seder if you're a host? And you need to take care of the table of the. So for sure, when we say all of these things, it requires organization. It requires planning. It requires taking care of things in advance. If I just allow myself to get, let's say we're very strict on not having Hametz, on having the house clean, on having the food ready, but when we hear that this is a very important mitzvah, we should also know that part of my preparation for Pesach has to do with the Hagadah. With me, first of all, with me reading the Hagadah in advance, knowing what it is about. That's why I was happy. I was debating, should I make a class on Pesach? And then I said, yes, why not? We have time. There is like 2 or 3 Shabbatot before Pesach. So bring out your Haggadot now. Have them not next to the Hametz, but have them next to you in the living room and start reading and start learning the text. Print some essays from Rabbi Sachs or from the rabbi that you like and start learning and having some insights in your head. And while we are thinking and get ideas, we're going to be able to make it more interesting to everyone. So again, you say the woman is busy, especially, I understand your question. In some homes, let's say in some homes is the woman the one that could really take good care of the seder, but she's busy. How does she do to do both? So planning, advices here. What advices can we give? Buy prices to the kids and let them know that there are prices. What else? Do your homework beforehand. Like, for example, first of all, you need to know who are you going to have in the seder. What ages do you have? To whom do you want to target? Imagine I have 3 kids that are 6 years old, but then the rest are 15 and 70, etc. And I focus all my attention to make it interesting to the 5 years old. The rest of the people are going to get upset, or the opposite. So you need to be able to give to every group of people a little bit of attention, writing questions in advance, and having the answers, and whoever answers will get some prize. Giving assignments in advance. My husband does it every year. Like once we know who is going to be in the seder, he writes emails to each one of the participants. You are responsible for this paragraph, and you're responsible to make an act, a show on this, and you have to take care of that, and you bring the prizes for this, and you bring us 10 questions about this. So don't take all the burden on your shoulders. Like there is so much out there today. I'm sure the Instagram girls know there are some people that are really good on posting good advices on what they do with their seder, and so many examples of homes that really transform their dining room table into a very, very interesting and enriching experience. So I think that we need, if we start from now, I'm sure that you're going to feel it in your Pesach, you're going to feel it in your seder. Now, some people don't stay home and they go away. That becomes a little bit more challenging, but still, it's all about how much you want to be in control and how much you maintain that control. So according to the circumstances, everyone has to do that. Okay, so we have the Seder of Pesach is divided into few steps. Do you know from where is the Hagadah shel Pesach written? From where is the text of the Hagadah shel Pesach brought? Wow, I love that I have a new crowd. I can really go back to teaching everything from scratch. You don't remember, Stella? Huh? Which parasha? Okay, if you had, okay, let's ask the question a different way. If you had to write the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim, where would you take it from? The Torah, where? Shemot, Sefer Shemot, Parashat Bo, Parashat Beshalach, these parashiot that speak about how we became slaves, how much we suffered, how Hashem asked from Moshe to take us out of Egypt, how Moshe comes to Egypt, and the struggle and the tension between Moshe and Aaron and Paro, and the Makot and the miracles and Korban Pesach, and all of what we studied in the book of Shemot. You will be surprised when you read the Hagadah, there is nothing from the book of Shemot. The Hagadah shel Pesach is not coming from the book of Shemot. Actually, I'm going to tell you now, but next time perhaps we can see it even inside. When you have your Humashim, today I didn't tell you to take Humashim. The Hagadah shel Pesach, most of the Hagadah shel Pesach is taken from a text that was a vidui, like a formulation that was said by the Jewish person that came to the Beit HaMikdash with a basket of fruits to give to the Kohen when? In Shavuot. Vidui Bikurim. And it's brought in Parashat Kitavo in the book of Devarim. Let me explain myself. We have in Parashat Kitavo, Mitzvat Bikurim that says, whenever you go to Eretz Israel and you enter the land and you live there and you plant and you get your fruits, there is a mitzvah that you need to, actually the Shivat HaMinim, the 7 fruits of Eretz Israel, you had to, how you say, tie them or sign them, the first ones. Why? Because you had to put them in a basket and bring it to the Beit HaMikdash, to the Kohen. And when you brought it, the Torah is saying, you need to say this paragraph. Now, what is that paragraph about? Is the story from Yaakov Avinu till the moment I'm here. Arami Oved Avi, my father was an Aramean, and Lavan wanted to kill him, and then so and so and so and so, until I come here and I came to Eretz Israel. Now, why are we bringing it from there instead of bringing it from the parasha of Shemot? What do you think? Do you understand my question? You need to see the text in front of you. Anybody has a Chumash with her? Okay, open Parashat Kitavo.
Saying it like a story of what happened.
Exactly, and what else? Here. I have it here. You have it? You want to read it? In the English.
And you shall put it in a basket and go to the place that Hashem your God will choose to make his name rest there. You shall come to whoever will be the Kohen in those days, and you shall say to him, I declare today to Hashem your God that I have come to the land of Hashem. Then you shall call out and say, Hashem, your God, an Aramean tried to destroy my forefather. And there he became a nation, great, strong, and weak. The Egyptians mistreated us and afflicted us and faced hard work with us. And we cried out to Hashem, the God of our forefathers, and Hashem heard our voice and saw our affliction, our travail, and our oppression. Hashem took us out of Egypt with a strong hand and with an outstretched arm, with great awesomeness, with signs and with wonders. He brought us to this day, and he gave us this land, a land flowing with milk and honey. And now behold, I have brought the first fruit of the ground that you have given to Hashem, and you shall lay before Hashem your God, and you shall prostrate yourself before Hashem your God.
Beautiful. So you see, the Israeli that is living already in Eretz Israel, that already planted, that already got his fruit, he's taking the fruits and bringing them to the Beit HaMikdash. What is the main expression that happens there when he brings the Bikurim? Gratitude. Gratitude. But not only gratitude, it's kind of saying, this fruit that I have here, it didn't come from nowhere. It is not only because I planted and I made the effort. It is, and then he remembers, it is thanks that you, Hashem, took us out of Egypt. and all what you did with us, all that chesed, and you brought us to Eretz Israel, and you allowed us to have this. That's how I now recognize that everything is from you, Hashem, and I bring it here. So I make a stop there, and I want to tell you something. We have a mitzvah to remember Yetziat Mitzrayim every night. Did you know? There is a mitzvah that every Jew, every day, needs to remember that Hashem took us out of Egypt. When do we do that? In the Shema. So what is the difference between saying the Shema, when we say that Hashem, you took us out of Egypt, and say the Hagadah Shel Pesach? What is the difference?
It's more detailed.
Is the detail, and what is the purpose of the detail? To teach me and to bring me to what? To feel and to be grateful to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Hagadah Shel Pesach is supposed to bring me through that process of understanding from where I'm coming, the chesed, the greatness that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did with us, and thanks to him, I am where I am. And especially if I'm in Eretz Israel, when I see my fruits, I recognize Hashem, thank you, everything is thanks to you, and I come and I bring it to the Beit HaMikdash. So this is very, very important, and that's the process that we go through in the Haggadah. That's why when Hashem tells us, you shall tell the story to your children, and our rabbis say, okay, how should we tell the story? Instead of going to the story, they go to the place in the Torah where the Torah is telling us, tell the story, and it's telling us with which word to say the story. What the person that brings the Bikurim is doing, he is telling the story the way Hashem told us to do that, and ending with the message of gratitude. So this is what we are doing in Leila Seder, in Pesach. We are understanding from where we come, our history, our Jewish identity, but it has to bring us to appreciation, to gratitude, to understanding that is coming from Hashem. So now what is the Haggadah? The text that Natalie read is not so long. It's something like that. It's like 4 or 5 psukim. What the Haggadah does, takes every single word and Chachamim explain it. And that's what we do. The Haggadah is taking every word from that text from the Bikurim, and we explain it. Okay? So this is what we're going to see better next time. Before we go there are a few steps that we do in the Leil of the Seder. You know them by heart, right? What is the beginning? Kadesh. What is Kadesh? The first is Kiddush. We say Kiddush. Okay. Then we do Urchatz. What is Urchatz? We wash our hands for what? Exactly. And that Netilat Yadayim, I'm sure everybody does it, and then you know that you can talk after that. There is not a problem. That Netilat Yadayim is in order, is a preparation for the next step, that is Karpas. Karpas is a bitter vegetable like celery, and we dip it in either salt with water or vinegar. There's different minhagim. Why do we do that? Do you know that? That's the water. The water is for the tears. Actually, it's very interesting. The Leila Seder, the night of Pesach, involves many contradictions. Many contradictions. For example, what is the matzah? What is the matzah representing? Freedom, because this is the bread that we were able to take with us in the moment of freedom, but also lechem oni, bread of poverty, because this is what they fed us in Egypt. It's not only the bread that we could take with us, it's also what they gave us to, because it would be heavy on your stomach, and the servants in that way would be filled. That's what we say, this is the bread of affliction, of poverty, that our forefathers used to eat in the land of Egypt. So it's, again, a contradiction. Now, the celery that we dip, either in salt with water or in vinegar, the celery itself represents, actually, you know what it represents? it represents freedom. It represents wealth. It was an appetizer. It was something that only the very wealthy people could have, because in those times you didn't have refrigerators. It was really how you say, a delicatessen, something very special. And that's why we eat it recline. Like when we recline, it's because in the times of our rabbis, in the times of the Mishnah, the important people used to eat in this type of like a bed where you recline to eat, and you had your individual tables next to you, and that's how you would eat if you were not a slave. We're not slaves, we're the masters, we're enjoying our dinner. And we dip the celery, like we eat the celery as an appetizer to start our meal, because that's what rich people do. At the same time, we are going to dip it in water with salt to remember the tears. So you see these two messages together in the same element of the celery that we are eating. Now, why netilat yadayim?
Because you're making the vegetable wet.
Okay, so that's something technically difficult. This is something that we're not used to do. People don't know that. Do you know that, for example, if you wash an apple, if you are eating an apple and the apple is washed, we theoretically need to do netilah beforehand.
Or you can dry it.
Or of course, or dry it. If when you are eating a vegetable or a fruit, it's wet, it's complicated. I'm not going to explain. It has to do with the tum'ah, tahara, and some people are really not doing that nowadays. But just for you to know, that's the reason why we do netilah before eating the celery, because the celery is going to be wet when we are eating it. Okay, so we said kadesh, urchatz, karpas, now yachatz. What is yachatz? We break the matzah and we keep part of it for the afikoman. Okay, and after yachatz, we go to here, magid. What is magid? Sorry, before that, why do we cut the matzah? Why do we cut it? Because the matzah, when it's supposed, oh, I lost the person I wanted to it. Okay. A poor man never has a full bread. Cutting the matzah also represents that this is lechem oni, the bread of the poor. Sometimes this is because the bread provides from the kindness of another who decided to give this poor man a piece of his own loaf. Other times, even when the poor man has a loaf all to himself, he may be wary of finishing it all at once. Why the poor man doesn't have a whole bread? Either because he got a piece from somebody else, or because even when you have a whole bread, you don't finish it in one meal. You always will cut and keep for the next meal because you are afraid that you are not going to have again. So now we go to Magid, which is telling the story. And when we tell the story, the minhag is to fill the second cup of wine, right? Now, what is the first thing that we do? We say, halachmania. What does it mean, halachmania? This is in Aramaic. It was said in Aramaic, so people could, halachmania was said in Aramaic because that was the language that everybody understood at that time. You wanted people to understand, and what are you saying in that paragraph? Halachmania, this is the bread of oni, diachalu avhatana, that our parents ate, be'ar'a the Mitzrayim, in the land of Egypt. Kal dichfin, I don't want to make a mistake, kal dichfin yete ve'yechol. Everybody that wants, whoever wants, come and eat with us. Kal ditzrich yete ve'yifsach. Whoever needs, come and join us in the offering of the Pesach. Hashatacha, this year we're here. Next year we shall be in the land of Israel. This year we are enslaved, and next year we shall be free. Who is enslaved here? Are we enslaved? Why do we say that we are enslaved? Because still we Jewish people, as well as we are doing, we recognize that this is not our ideal situation. We are still not in the ideal place, and it's good to remember. As good as we are, Baruch Hashem, and we enjoy freedom and we enjoy the ability to do whatever we want, this is not how we want to be as the Jewish nation. What is our ideal situation? In Eretz Israel with the Bet HaMikdash, having Jerusalem as our spiritual center, being able to celebrate Pesach, how? Bringing the Korban to the Bet HaMikdash, to do the Korban Pesach. So yes, we love Pesach, we enjoy Pesach, but we need to remember, this is not all of it. We need improvement. If we don't say this, we will forget, okay? So why is it said in Aramaic? It's said in Aramaic, so what are we doing in this paragraph? When I said, what are we saying? Whoever wants, please come. Our home is open. Some people really get up and open the door, and everybody thinks it's only for Eliyahu and Navi. The real meaning is also because every Jewish home for Pesach was open to whoever needs. Now, of course, in the days that we live, we don't invite people in the moment of the Seder. When do we invite people? We invite before. But this is a very important thing that we need. Part of our preparations for Pesach should be sit together with my husband and try to think, who would benefit from us inviting them? Who would need to sit in our Seder table? Who really doesn't have family around them? That's so, so important. It's not going to be enough that I say, whoever wants come, nobody will come. That's not how it used to be, that people lived in everybody next to each other and they heard to each other. So this is part of the preparation, and to remember that this is not our ideal way. So we just started. Be'ezrat Hashem, what I recommend you to do for the next class is bring your Haggadot. And then it's going to be easier for you to see what we're going to explain. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.